Yes, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is for you. Welcome back to FHTV. Today, look, let's just have a chat about it. Let's get it out in the open. Tottenham Hotspur, it's all a bit of a mess, isn't it? And Thomas Frank is, depending on who you speak to, staring down both barrels. Some people today have described it as he's a dead man walking in footballing terms. Other people are just adamant he's got to go. This is terrible. Other people are messaging and saying he needs time. And this is years and years of neglect. This isn't his fault. So we're going to chat about all of that and see where are we? Because I know that YouTube has very much become about point scoring, but let's have a look and let's have an honest look at where are we as a club and what's going wrong. Let's be brutally honest about this. After last night, we're seeing Thomas Frank having a go at the fans, and that never ends well. I would not advise that, and Thomas Frank is going to dig his own grave that way. You've got Pedro Porro and Bergval having a shouting match at each other about whether to clap the fans or not. You've got reports of a scuffle down the tunnel. You've got the fans booing at half-time, booing Vicario. You've got Thomas Frank getting the tactics wildly wrong and changing from game to game. You've got people saying that the transfer windows for the last 10 years have killed this club and left us with the squad we've got. Where to begin? Like, if we for 1 minute stop the only conversation being Frank in versus Frank out and have a more holistic look at Tottenham Hotspur, I think that's the best thing to do. Now, I get it. All of those that are calling for Thomas Frank's head, I get it. I get it. I get it. And as I've said a million times, I know this always goes over people's head. I like Thomas Frank. Something's not working at the moment. And if I wake up, I always say this sentence, if I wake up and Thomas Frank's been sacked, then Thomas Frank has been sacked. But I want to ask 3 key questions to all of you first. 1, can Thomas Frank turn this situation around? That's the first question I guess the ownership are going to have to ask themselves. It's not great at the moment. We've won something like 4 of our last 14 games, 2 of the last 10, something like that. I don't know the exact stats. And the question they're going to have to ask themselves is, well, we paid 10 million to get this guy out of Brentford and his coaching staff. Is this the guy? Is this our man that can turn the ship around? If the answer to that question is yes, and we need time, then it's a non-starting point, right? Like the conversation doesn't exist and we have to go through some pain. The second question that goes with that is, if he can't turn it around, right? If he can't turn it around, it's, does he get the sack? And if he does get the sack, does he get the sack now? Does he get the sack in January? Does he get the sack at the end of the season? Does he get money? Like Sean Butler made a great point last night saying, you know, if this is the case, does he get funds in the January window, or do you wait and give those funds to someone more permanently in the summer? Maybe by then he's turned things around. All of these different metrics. But the third and the most important question for me here is, if you don't believe that Thomas Frank is the right man, do you believe that Thomas Frank should be sacked? B, who should replace him? And C, is this purely a manager issue? Now, I'm aware people will go, oh, well, you were really harsh with Ange. And I was, yeah, absolutely. And maybe if I was too harsh on Ange, I was too harsh. But 17th, 22 defeats. However, at the moment, we look on course for another bottom half finish. Now, it's early days. We don't know what we could win 10 games in a row. Can't see it. But at the moment, I'm going to ask that question. Is this purely a manager issue? Is this a player issue? Has this also been a planning and a board issue? Now, I'm of belief that there's definitely enough pie to go around. So if we're going to talk about the blame pie, I think there's definitely enough to go around. So let's start with Thomas Frank. As I said, I like Thomas Frank, but he's not doing himself any favors. I'm of the opinion that the manager's going to need time. I'm also of the opinion that he's not going to be given the required time to work here. With that in mind, it begs the question, do you rip the band off and go again and again and again? Or does he get given the time? Now, no manager is indefensible, right? I can sit here as much as I want and say, I like Thomas Frank. It's going to take time. He needs transfer windows. And all of that is true. But at the same time, if we're not seeing a style or an attempt at a style, if we're not seeing a plan as to, right, we're not expecting to be amazing, but what is it that you want us to be, Thomas? Then that is, as I said last night, this guy's going to get himself the sack. Forget the Frank in-out conversation. He will end up getting himself the sack if he can't turn this around and if this home form continues. Spurs have won one home game this season against promoted Burnley. And that's not defense. How do you defend that? I can't just sit here and go, get off Frank's back, but I can't defend that. Beaten by PSG, beaten by Arsenal, beaten by Newcastle. These games I can say, yada, yada, yada. This is what happens. These clubs are better than us and better players. Fulham at home, to put in that performance, lackluster, no direction. It's not excusable. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and go, Frank out, Frank out, Frank out, because the next part of this, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, is fine, sack the manager, but where do you go? Where do you go next? And right now, we're all football fans, so this is the best bit for us, isn't it? We get to play make-believe. So we go, go and get X, Y, Z. Go and get me De Zerbi. Go and get me Iriola. Go and get me Xavi. Go and get me Glasner. Fill in the blanks with the names. Go and get me Holness of Stuttgart. Now, I love this game, and it's great for YouTube and great for a football conversation. But as we know, it's not always that simple. It's November, but listen, let's be fair. It's December as of tomorrow, right? It's tomorrow, December, the day after. I don't even know anymore. It's December, essentially. So the pool of managers that you can pick from is going to be very different because lots of managers aren't going to want to leave mid-season. Lots of clubs are going to fight tooth and nail to keep their manager mid-season. And there are lots of managers as well whose contracts are actually running out. And those managers will probably sit tight and say, well, let me get to the summer and I'll have a wider pool of teams to choose from. So, as I said, the whole does a manager leave? I've always said this. Managers come and managers go. It's not the end of the world. I'm not going to die on a hill for a manager to stay. But what is the plan? And this is the key thing I was trying to talk about last night. What is the plan? It's all well and good saying just sack him. What's the plan now? Who are we going to get? Who is coming in, takes this group of players and says, I can mold this group of players to my identity, to my style. And I see this a lot. People go, oh, so-and-so is a much better manager in terms of the style of play. I'm a believer, and you all know I think this. I don't think the squad is as good as many Spurs fans think it is. I think this is a painfully average football squad with a few good players sprinkled in it. I think in the main, I think it's average. I think in the main, this is a squad now that you're seeing no Kane, no Son together, and you're seeing just how many cracks those two papered over. So with that in mind, does a manager, let's use Glasner, for example, just by way of example. Right now, does Glasner say, I want to leave Palace. They're going well in the league. They're going well in the Conference League. Do I want to leave Crystal Palace at the end of November and join Spurs? And I'm guessing questions he'll have to ask himself are, how much are they going to pay me? And we know we can pay well. The next question is going to be, do Spurs have the players to play the way Glasner wants to play? The third thing is going to be, are the fans going to like him? Because, again, lots of Spurs fans saying, we don't want pragmatic managers. They don't work at Tottenham Hotspur. Well, if you actually watch Palace, bloody well coached, bloody well organised, bloody well drilled, but they are a pragmatic football team that don't have a lot of possession. So, again, would that work for Spurs? And that in no way means I don't rate Glasner. I think Glasner's a wonderful manager. But this is where I want to know that there is a plan and what are we asking for? Also, if a Glasner comes in, I'm just using him as an example, by the way. Just if a Glasner comes in, are the fans going to go, right, this is the guy we're going to give some time to? Or are we going to get to the first tricky spell under his ownership and say, no, this manager's not worked either? And we're all guilty of this. I'm guilty of it as much as the next person, wanting managers out, wanting something new. But it's a great question, right? Who comes in? Who is the right profile? Are they going to be backed? Now, I don't care. If anyone doesn't like Thomas Frank and wants him out, fine. I just want to know that my club, which is, let's be fair, my club, your club trumps everything. Spurs, for me, trumps which manager is managing it. It trumps which players are wearing the shirt at any given moment. Spurs has to be the priority. So I want to know, if Frank does go in this hypothetical world, right? What's the plan? Who is coming into the hot seat and what's the plan for them? For example, if Iriola comes into Tottenham Hotspur, we know that Iriola plays a nice brand of football, but also quite wide open, and his teams concede a lot of goals. So at first, let's take this to the first step. At first, we'll go, yes, an attacking, possession-based manager. This is what we want. That's step one. Brilliant, yes. Now, he tries to play this style of play with the footballers we've got. It doesn't work, and we're going, oh, this doesn't work. Oh, we're conceding loads of goals again because we're wide open at the back. How long until people get frustrated with that? So I'm not against changing managers. Whenever a manager goes, a manager goes. Conte went, Jose went, Potts went, they all go. Eventually, managers go. But what is it that we want? Because the second part that I was going to say, we talked about Frank. We can't excuse some of the things he's doing, some of the performances. But the second part has to be about the players. And the players, for me, are just not good enough. I think there's a sprinkling of good footballers there. I like Kudus, right? Mwani's decent. I like Paulinho for what he does. Van de Ven, when Romero's on form. Then I see a lot of youngsters behind that and a lot of average players behind that. So again, whichever manager comes in is picking up this same squad. And I ask the question, if you're going to get rid of the manager, at what point do you have to gut the squad? So sure, Frank can go, but at what point do we go, sure, if you're going, then come the summer, starting in January, come the summer, 7, 8, 9, 10 of these players need to go. I don't know. I'm just asking the questions, right? I just think it's a really interesting conversation. I'm up for anything, right? I'm up for anything. I don't think anybody is unsackable. I don't think any player is untouchable, but there must be a plan. And my worry is this squad is not what many Spurs fans think it is. We got people defending. Oh, I think Bergval's a great player, and Gray's a great player, and Sarr and Tell and Odegaard and Richie and Johnson and Adogi and Porro and all of the players I just mentioned. I think, well, I don't. They're okay. So there's the next question. The new manager coming in, does he get the new manager bounce out of the players? And again, this is all hypothetical because the manager hasn't gone anywhere. Does he get the new manager bounce out of the players for the first 3, 4, 5, 6 games? And we all go, oh my gosh, this is wonderful. Then the players slowly but surely settle back to the average nature that they are, and the results go south again. Because we're seeing a theme. Frank had a new manager bounce, right? Ange had the really good manager bounce. Conte had it. Jose had it, right? Nuno had the new manager bounce. But we're seeing a pattern. All of these managers are coming in. They are starting well, whether that's the first 4 games, the first 10, they're starting well. And then we tail off again. Now, that is not a coincidence, is it? That's not a coincidence. It doesn't mean that all of these managers are shite. What it tells me is the squad isn't good enough. So you've got the manager. Is he good enough? Is he not? The players, are they good enough? Are they not? And then we go to the third prong, which is the board. And the board and the directors, they buy the players, right? So chuck Paratici and Lang into that mix. What accountability do they have to take? So we're going to put some accountability on Frank. We're going to put some accountability on the players. What accountability do they have to take? Are they buying to make Spurs better? Or are we just buying opportunistic signings? Are we buying with a plan in mind? What's the plan? It's a massive word, but what is the plan? So I think when you look at all 3 of those situations, I think it shows you, yep, you can sack the manager. And let's be fair, club sacking a manager is always the obvious thing to do. Because 1, it removes accountability from the board. The board can turn around at any football club, not just Spurs, and say, it's the manager. We'll hide behind this. We'll use this manager as a shield, right? It's the manager. Look, we've bought players. We bought him in. It's him. So sacking the manager is easier, right? We know that. We've seen that all along. Sacking a manager is cheaper than buying better footballers as well. So you can sack Frank, fine. But what do you do with the players and their accountability? What do you do with the board and their accountability? So I guess my point is this. If Frank goes. We move on. I know some people seem to think it's do or die for me. I don't care, right? If he goes, he goes. But I think that a lot of people seem to think that if Frank is changed, that everything changes at the club. And overnight, the players are suddenly better. The brand of football is suddenly better. The board have acted properly. And everything is rosy in the garden. And I want to know who truly believes that. So I get it. I'll say this again before I wrap up. I get the people in the chat that go, Frank out. I get it. But at what point do we look a little bit deeper? At what point do we put the plan in place? At what point do we say, this is where we want to be? These are the actions and the stepping stones that we're putting in place to get from A to Z. If that guy isn't with Frank, fine. But then who is that guy? What players does that guy need to make it work? For example, Xavi. I keep seeing people going, I want Xavi Hernandez. Now, I like Xavi Hernandez. I mean, one of the best players I've ever seen play football. But I like Xavi as a manager as well. But let's be brutally honest. Xavi plays a nice technical passing game of football with his players. Spurs don't have the footballers to do that. So if you bring in Xavi, go for it. Bring him in. When his style doesn't work, we're all going to be going, this manager's crap as well. Rather than going, we've got to buy some top footballers. We've got to stop defending Grays, Bergvals, Sars, Tells, Odebers, Bentancurs, Porros, Adogis. Go and be a big club. I keep hearing we're a big club. Act like it. Go and buy 2 proper fullbacks. Go and buy a brand new midfield, 2 or 3 of them. Go and buy a top winger, a top striker. Go and buy another left-sided centre-half that can compete with Van der Ven. Because I'm telling you, change the manager all you want. But if they don't act in the transfer market, we're going to be here again. So let me know your thoughts. And for all of those that will just reply with something silly, I've not defended Frank here. Frank, for me, is on thin ice. I like Frank, but me liking Frank isn't enough to excuse what we're seeing. For me, I think he's going to have a couple of games. And if he gets a couple of big defeats to Newcastle and Brentford in the next 2 games, I think he's going to go. Now, that's not me sitting here saying Frank out. That's the reality of the situation, is that the fans won't put up with it at the stadium. The board, I don't think, will put up with it unless they've got massive plans for January or the summer that involve Frank. So for me, if he goes, he goes. We start the merry-go-round again. And I just don't know where it ends. And for me, Spurs are tumbling. We are falling year in, year out with the quality of the squad, with how far away we are falling from the bigger clubs. And I'm going to ask the question, how big a club are Spurs anymore? I'll leave it there. We're live tonight, 7:30 for the Spurs review, where I'm going to be joined by Lubo. I'm going to be joined by Luke from Spotlight on Spurs. There's a couple of others joining as well. Much love. Take care. Let's get some dialogue going. Let's have some proper conversations, and I'll respond to your comments. Silly comments I just will remove. So let's have some serious dialogue. We'll talk about it at 7:30 tonight. But one thing I do know, it's never, ever dull at Tottenham Hotspur. And the Spurs vicious circle continues. Take care. Much love. And as always, come on, you Spurs.